After the blood spirit golden pearls failed to sell at 10 billion cosmic sand each, Lord Yuan Shu remarked with a smile that no one would agree to such a price. While a pinnacle primal chaos realm expert stated he would only be willing to buy a few at that level, the city lord of Huang Feng became disappointed, and Luo Feng observed that the entire blood spirit golden pearl task was supported by the competition among the 7 first-rank marquis of Emperor Chu's lineage, whose combined wealth was still limited. Even spending several hundred billion cosmic sand would only secure a few pearls, which was insignificant compared to the 25 pearls obtained by Great Saint Bai Yun in the first eruption. Although transcendents of the primal chaos realm possessed far greater personal wealth than first-rank marquis, they were only assisting due to personal relationships and were not using their own resources for this task. So none were willing to pay heavily. Luo Feng concluded that the final decision still depended on the first-rank marquis, who simply could not afford such prices. Seeing no success, the city lord of Huang Feng reduced the price to 80 billion cosmic sand per pearl, then further lowered it to 60 billion cosmic sand each as the minimum price. After which he smiled and claimed that all blood spirit golden pearls had already been sold before disappearing as a desert wind. This sudden conclusion shocked Luo Feng, Lord Yuan Shu, and others, who speculated about the buyer and whether the sale was real or fabricated. But it was understood that the pearls had to be delivered to Chu capital within 10 days or they would transform into blood spirit poison pearls, making any deception pointless. So everyone gradually left. As Luo Feng departed, he noticed Great Saint Yan Su watching him with a cold, mocking expression. Luo Feng realized Yan Su was deliberately targeting him, though he had never met him before. In the land of origin, most ancient experts avoided forming enemies easily due to long-term concerns. But Yan Su belonged to a rare type of solitary powerhouse who acted without restraint, feared nothing, and cared only about cultivation, showing ruthless behavior though not engaging in large-scale massacres. Compared to notorious figures such as the ancestral god of the Snow Realm and the master of Shi Kingdom who destroyed multiple divine kingdoms, Yan Su's reputation was still less severe. Luo Feng then hurried back to Chu capital as the blood spirit star eruption would not occur again for a long time, with each era containing only 2 to 3 eruptions. He returned to Marquis Chu Yu's mansion, where only Chu Yu's divine incarnation received him since his true body was on another heavenly mission involving 3 subtasks, one of which was the blood spirit golden pearl task. Luo Feng handed over 9 blood spirit golden pearls obtained from the first eruption, and Chu Yu, having already learned that Lord Yuan Shu had obtained only 3, was satisfied. Luo Feng then asked about Great Saint Yan Su, but Chu Yu denied any enmity, stating that he had only recently become a first-rank marquis and previously was merely an eternal true god, making it impossible for him to have offended such a transcendent primal chaos realm expert. Luo Feng nodded and concluded that Yan Su's hostility was likely directed at him personally. Chu Yu smiled and said Luo Feng should do his best but not force himself, as his ranking did not matter much given his recent promotion, while Luo Feng reminded him to complete his other subtasks properly before leaving. Watching Luo Feng depart, Chu Yu reflected that Luo Feng's personality valued righteousness and loyalty, and considered it extremely fortunate to have invited him as chief guest elder. Luo Feng then left the mansion and purchased a detailed intelligence report on Great Saint Yan Su through the Flame Wind Association's Dark Hall. As he traveled, he studied the information and tried to understand why Yan Su, a stranger, would specifically target him, since experts of his level rarely formed enemies without reason. The report revealed Yan Su's clone technique was extremely powerful, granting him 2 complete avatars, each with full divine body and soul, as well as 7 weaker avatars, effectively doubling his combat strength compared to normal experts. Luo Feng compared this to his own 8 Tribulations lifeform clone technique, which divided his power among all avatars so that none gained additional strength, meaning all clones shared a single whole. He reflected that although countless avatars could be formed in his system, each one reduced his main body's strength, whereas Yan Su's technique allowed him to maintain multiple fully independent peak bodies, effectively multiplying power. Luo Feng also noted that among the 9 origin Great Daos, only the Great Dao of Life Origin supported common cloning techniques, while only the Time Primordial Dao and the Origin Dao of Space could achieve even higher level avatar manifestations. with time allowing past, present, and future incarnations, and space allowing multiple complete bodies beyond normal constraints. He deduced that Yan Su's true body was likely stationed at the border city Shangji City, while another complete avatar and several weaker ones participated in the Blood Spirit Golden Pearl competition. He also learned Yan Su had no emotional attachments, cared only about cultivation, and had even allowed his disciples to die multiple times. Meanwhile, the city lord of Desert Wind arrived alone in a dark forest to meet a mysterious existence. Admitting he had failed to sell any Blood Spirit Golden Pearls, the mysterious figure calmly stated he would purchase all pearls at 30 billion cosmic sand each within the mission time limit, regardless of quantity, and the city lord handed over 12 pearls to him. The city lord had been instructed to publicly sell them for at least 60 billion cosmic sand each, which was already double the hidden purchase price. But as expected, no one was willing to buy them. The city lord lamented that the imperial clan and nobles of the Flamewind ancient country were too stingy, while the mysterious figure laughed and disappeared without revealing his identity. Luo Feng then returned to his cave dwelling near Blood Spirit Star, where his divine incarnation continued monitoring the star while his true body cultivated inside the star tower space. He studied the 3-in-1 form and 10-directional world form, analyzing particle structures and underlying laws, but still encountered difficulties despite reaching the peak of primal chaos realm in both the life spirituality lineage and life body lineage and possessing reference materials from the golden scale beetle and other perfect primal chaos layer creatures. He admitted that the Blood Spirit Golden Pearl competition had exposed many weaknesses in his combat abilities. In raw strength, he was comparable to the city lord of Desert Wind, but in techniques and methods he was inferior to Great Saint Bai Yun, whose attacks were so precise that Luo Feng could not even discern his true body. He concluded that without improvement, he would gain little in the second eruption of Blood Spirit Star. Finally, Luo Feng took out a stone box containing 9 primordial crystal spirit fruits. Although he had originally planned to consume only 5 during his primal chaos realm cultivation, he decided that this moment of bottleneck and urgency justified using one now. He opened the box, took out a single fruit, and ate it despite its tough texture. As it dissolved in his body, its energy spread through his soul, refining it, making it more ethereal, and rapidly accelerating his thoughts, marking the beginning of a deeper cultivation breakthrough. After consuming the primordial crystal spirit fruit, Luo Feng remained in an unusually stable and optimal cultivation state, with his soul continuously nourished, allowing him to maintain peak clarity indefinitely. His comprehension ability increased dramatically, and his thought speed accelerated by 20 to 30 times compared to normal conditions. Using this enhanced state, he began dissecting and analyzing materials from golden scale beetles and perfect primal chaos layer creatures, treating them as reference structures for understanding higher life forms. During this process, Luo Feng focused on 2 major life lineages, the life spirituality lineage and the body of life lineage. His goal was to integrate both into a theoretical Trinity state. However, he gradually realized that even perfect accumulation at the peak of the primal chaos realm was insufficient to achieve this transformation. The difficulty of forming the Trinity was comparable to comprehending a complete Great Tao branch, meaning it required a fundamental qualitative breakthrough rather than quantitative accumulation. He reflected that cultivation progress depends not only on resource accumulation but also on layered comprehension. Even reaching godly king level might be necessary before truly grasping the Trinity structure. So he continued long-term research rather than forcing a premature breakthrough. At the same time, in the primordial cosmos within a special dimension of the source ground, Luo Feng's divine power incarnation directly observed the complete Great Tao of life origin. From different observational angles, the Tao manifested in radically different forms, sometimes as a twisting dragon with 24 claws, sometimes as an eternal river spanning time and space, sometimes as a vast godly life form, and sometimes as the pure conceptual origin of all life. This constant variation represented the infinite expressions of life itself. While observing, Luo Feng's spiritual will was continuously baptized by the Tao, allowing him to unconsciously approach deeper comprehension. He repeatedly considered the concept of Trinity, recalling the detailed records from the Life Body chapter of the 8 Tribulations life form, particularly the first calamity description. The concept seemed extremely close. yet remained just beyond reach, reflecting the typical bottleneck faced by cultivators at the peak of primal chaos realm or even beyond, where many cannot master a complete Dao branch despite infinite accumulation. In another space within the Star Tower, Morosa was in isolated cultivation. After absorbing the corpse of the golden scale beetle, he had remained in deep refinement for a long time, fully digesting its power. He had returned to his true sector beast form but manifested as a tall, fair-skinned, strikingly beautiful humanoid being. His aura carried a natural seductive and destructive resonance, as he was fundamentally aligned with the path of destruction, and at this stage he no longer concealed his sector beast nature. Suddenly, his aura underwent a violent fluctuation. The internal realm inside his body began to resonate and expand outward, indicating a qualitative life transition. His body structure and life essence broke through a fundamental boundary, completing a leap from primal chaos realm to godly king level. This was not a simple increase in energy but a complete metamorphosis of life structure. Upon stabilizing, Morosa opened his eyes with visible excitement, confirming that this breakthrough represented the final transformation stage of his internal realm. At godly king level, the realm inside him had already formed an embryonic final structure, granting him far greater control and authority over his abilities. He emphasized that this evolution was the most critical transformation for a sector beast. He further explained that this breakthrough was achieved much faster than expected, largely due to the golden scale beetle corpse, whose dense origin energy was equivalent to thousands of standard primal chaos realm resources. Without it, reaching godly king would have required extremely long-term accumulation over many eras. Morosa then revealed his new capabilities, the most dangerous being a curse-killing technique derived from his internal realm. As long as he had once observed a target, he could initiate a causal curse attack that bypasses direct confrontation and attacks existence at the level of fate and causality. He claimed most first-realm godly kings would be unable to resist it, with their avatars and survival contingencies being erased and forced into reincarnation. He also gained powerful concealment abilities through avatar transformations, allowing him to operate anonymously across the land of origin. Excited, Morosa requested permission to act in the outside world, but Luo Feng immediately rejected him, warning that although he had become a godly king, he was still only at the first realm level and that the land of origin contained extremely powerful beings, especially from the two ancient countries, who possessed advanced causal tracking methods. Luo Feng emphasized that even curse techniques could potentially be traced through time-space causality, and reminded him that many transcendent primal chaos realm beings were already known to those ancient forces. He warned Morosa not to rely on luck or overconfidence and reminded him that they had only been in the land of origin for 60 eras. Morosa quickly calmed down under soul suppression and acknowledged his arrogance. Luo Feng then strictly ordered that even if Morosa reached pinnacle sector beast level in the future, he would still require permission before acting. After stabilizing the situation, Luo Feng asked Morosa to demonstrate his understanding of the great Tao of destruction origin. Morosa revealed an enormous dark black hole-like structure within the Star Tower space, where 6 branches of destruction formed perfect structural keystones stabilizing the entire system. Luo Feng was shocked to discover that Morosa had comprehended all 6 branches simultaneously, something normally impossible for cultivators who usually master only one branch before becoming godly king. Morosa explained that this was due to his sector beast nature and the golden scale beetle corpse, which triggered instinctive comprehension during evolution, and that true difficulty lay in merging the 6 branches into a unified system requiring further energy and resources. He also implied he would need more food to continue evolving. Luo Feng fell into silence after observing this highly perfect destructive cosmos, realizing it far surpassed traditional models. From this observation, he gained a deeper understanding of realm structures and concluded that both the Trinity form and 10 Directions world form were primitive compared to the 6-branch system, leading to a significant refinement in his comprehension of the Trinity concept. Morosa patiently demonstrates the mysteries of the origin of destruction for an extremely long period of time, initially showing calm patience but gradually becoming increasingly astonished as the duration extends far beyond his expectations. He repeatedly questions how many days have passed, counting tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, eventually reaching 1,000,000 days. until he can no longer endure it and asks Luo Feng whether he may stop. Luo Feng, surrounded by divine power fluctuations, remains immersed in deep cultivation and responds while studying the 6 branches of destruction origin, which he perceives as having evolved into a vast, dark, black hole-like structure. He remarks that even after such an extended period, Morosa is already impatient. While continuing his comprehension without distraction, Luo Feng observes that the 6 branches of destruction origin are not random but instead follow an intrinsic structural logic. He gradually perceives that pairs of branches merge and stabilize into a triadic foundation, forming a 3-point equilibrium that can support the construction of stable worlds. This insight leads him to a deeper realization that the essence of this system is not duality but trinity, where 3 elements mutually reinforce and stabilize one another, creating a foundational structure for higher-order existence. Morosa falls silent under Luo Feng's scrutiny. Continuing to endure the demonstration, Luo Feng then turns his attention to microscopic matter, slicing open particles derived from the corpse of a golden scale beetle. Within each particle, he observes further subdivision into smaller particles, where 9 sub-particles form recursive structures, continuously dividing and rotating in groups of 3. Each group of 3 particles fuses and cycles in a stable pattern, mirroring the same triadic principle he observed in the destruction origin. This discovery confirms a universal structural law connecting macrocosmic origin power and microcosmic material composition. Guided by intuition, Luo Feng repeatedly attempts to reconstruct his divine power into a trinity-based form. With the assistance of the primordial crystal spirit fruit, he maintains peak condition, allowing continuous experimentation despite repeated failure. Each failure refines his understanding, gradually allowing him to accumulate deeper experience in particle transformation, structural fusion, and divine power control. Over time, his attempts converge toward a stable configuration. Eventually, Luo Feng succeeds. With a casual wave of his hand, his divine power transforms into 3 mutually interwoven particles. These particles are simultaneously distinct and unified, forming a tripod-like structure with an internal core where secret patterns intertwine, containing essences of both life origin and destruction origin. At the moment of success, Luo Feng instinctively senses completion and confirms that the transformation has succeeded. Morosa also perceives the surge of joy and power from Luo Feng and immediately asks if he has succeeded. Luo Feng replies that verification is still required. He then dramatically expands the scale of the transformation, creating tens of millions of particles, then hundreds of millions, and rapidly increasing until he reaches a limit of approximately 1,080,000,000,000 particles. Each set of 3 particles fuses into a single entity, ultimately forming 36 billion stable composite units. These units condense and converge, forming a vast black river that appears before him. The Black River contains immense destructive and life-based power, astonishing even Luo Feng, as a single river already exceeds the strength of many peak primal chaos realm lifeforms in terms of physical body. He continues experimenting, generating more black rivers at accelerating speed. Initially, he forms hundreds of millions of fused structures per attempt, but as his understanding deepens, the number increases continuously. Within a short time, he constructs an enormous number of black rivers, ultimately reaching around 100 billion complete entities. Each black river is composed of countless fused particles and carries an extremely dense divine power structure. However, Luo Feng soon realizes that controlling such a massive system places an enormous burden on his soul. Even with his perfect divine body, second realm godly king level spiritual will, and protective techniques such as the Lai Yuan method, he still feels more than half of his spiritual will being consumed simply to maintain control. He understands that the greater the number of black rivers, the heavier the mental load becomes, revealing that this form requires extremely high soul strength to sustain. Despite this burden, the combined black rivers exert overwhelming influence over the surrounding space. At this moment, Luo Feng's presence alone begins to affect the surrounding world. The natural laws in the vicinity subtly shift and center around him, as if the entire environment is responding to his existence. Even supreme rules momentarily yield to his presence. Morosa, witnessing this, feels immense pressure and shock, realizing that Luo Feng's current physical existence already rivals high-level godly kings. Despite him not fully mastering any branch of the Great Tao, Luo Feng reflects internally that his body has now reached a level where even simple control of physical power exerts immense pressure on his soul. He realizes that a single black river already surpasses the physical strength of peak primal chaos realm specialists who focus purely on body cultivation. With 100 billion such black rivers combined, the total power is beyond ordinary comprehension. He concludes that this transformation has elevated his combat ability to true godly king-level standards. Morosa cautiously asks if he may stop assisting. Luo Feng replies that he no longer requires Morosa's help and continues refining his divine power. He rapidly increases efficiency, forming hundreds of millions of fused particles per instant, and over time further increases his transformation speed. Morosa observes curiously as black rivers continue to take shape endlessly. After reaching a stable state, Luo Feng completes over 100 billion black rivers and finally pauses. He remarks that this form imposes a significant burden on the soul. He recognizes that although his divine body is perfect and his spiritual will is strong, maintaining such a structure still pushes him close to his limits. He understands that without sufficient soul strength, such a form cannot be maintained even by godly kings. Morosa watches Luo Feng in shock, feeling that Luo Feng's power has reached a level comparable to himself. As a sector beast that has entered the godly king level, mastered all 6 branches of destruction, and undergone multiple divine transformations, Morosa is still astonished by Luo Feng's current state. Luo Feng's mere presence already influences the surrounding laws, making him appear as a central point of the world. Luo Feng then sends Morosa away into his spatial lair to continue focusing on comprehension alone. After Morosa leaves, Luo Feng continues studying the Black River form, analyzing its structure and naming it officially. He concludes that this form originates from the Trinity state within his 10 Directions world system, developed through integration of golden scale beetle material, Morosa's sector form essence, and the life body chapter of the 8 Tribulations life form. He names this technique the Black River form. He realizes that each Black River possesses strong life spirituality and can exist independently, effectively functioning as a clone system. He considers the theoretical possibility of dividing himself into 100 billion avatars but quickly rejects the idea, understanding that dispersing power would significantly weaken his overall combat ability. Instead, unity provides maximum strength while division provides survivability. He further analyzes that his clone technique differs from others. His power separation is not independent cultivation but fragmentation of divine power, whereas other beings cultivate entirely separate bodies. He reflects on other known clone systems and understands the fundamental differences in outcomes and limitations. He also recognizes that the Black River form can create its own world, forming a domain-like space that isolates internal and external influences, even partially affecting causality. Luo Feng then expands his power into spatial layers inside the Star Tower, creating a black world centered around him. He observes that this world is fundamentally different from his previous galaxy thread cage technique, as it is constructed from billions of black rivers rather than layered energy threads. This world is stable, self-contained, and capable of isolating certain causal effects. Finally, Luo Feng splits his existence into multiple avatars. 2 major avatars leave the Star Tower. One travels to Chu capital, and the other to Huyang City. Each avatar is composed of roughly 100 million black rivers and contains significant divine power reserves. The Chu capital avatar resides in his cave dwelling, while the Huyang City avatar enters the city lord's mansion and replaces a previous divine incarnation. Both avatars possess combat strength comparable to First Realm godly kings. Luo Feng realizes that his techniques now place him on par with ancient existences, whose abilities are complex, unpredictable, and extremely difficult to kill. He understands that while his survivability has increased dramatically due to multiple avatars, opponents at this level are equally dangerous, often possessing curse techniques, causality manipulation, or near-immortality characteristics that make them extremely difficult to eliminate completely. Chu capital is one of the most powerful and bustling cities at the forefront of the land of origin, directly governed by Emperor Chu, where godly kings and numerous primal chaos realm experts reside, and no external force dares to cause disturbances. Major ancient clans have established branches here, while many independent eternal true gods also gather in the city seeking opportunities, inheritance, and advancement in cultivation. Among them is Yu Yui, who specializes in musical illusion techniques, and a group of eternal true gods discussing how to become disciples under Marquis Chu Chang. In a tavern, a black-scale eternal true god claims he can help others become disciples of Marquis Chu Chang. But others are skeptical, noting that even if they join, they may only become servants rather than true disciples. At the same time, the primordial ancestor's illusionary avatar is present among them. This avatar is one of 9 independent identities he maintains in Chu capital, each capable of acting in different social roles such as joining factions, managing businesses, blending into independent cultivator circles, or participating in covert operations. Each avatar is physically real, possessing about 30% of the main body's strength, making them extremely difficult to detect, even by powerful primal chaos realm pinnacle experts like Marquis Chu Ji and Marquis Chu Yuan. Unless they encounter a godly king-level existence, the discussion among the eternal true gods shifts toward the possibility of obtaining a godly king-level inheritance in the illusion technique lineage. The primordial ancestor expresses concern that even after serving Marquis Chu Chang, they may need to accumulate merit for tens of thousands of years without guarantee of receiving such inheritance. However, others are tempted, believing that if Marquis Chu Chang is willing, he could directly grant a godly king-level inheritance, making them eager to pledge loyalty immediately. Some argue that this expectation is unrealistic, while others insist they are willing to follow as long as inheritance is possible. The conversation then turns to the ongoing rivalry among first-rank marquises of Emperor Chu's lineage, who are competing intensely by bringing subordinates into training and engaging in deadly battles, resulting in numerous casualties. They also recruit transcendents of the primal chaos realm to fight over the blood spirit golden pearl. Several major transcendents, including Desert Wind City Lord, Great Saint Bai Yun, Great Saint Luohi, Great Saint Yan Su, and Lord Yuan Shu Mansion, clash violently over the treasure, all tied to the competition among the 7 first-rank marquises. Among them, Great Saint Bai Yun is considered the strongest, followed by Desert Wind City Lord, while Luohi and Yan Su are relatively equal, and Lord Yuan Shu ranks last. These figures frequently engage in devastating physical battles, especially those specializing in body refinement, where each movement can destroy vast regions. Meanwhile, Luo Feng, after achieving the Tri-Unity form, has reached a new level of strength, placing him among the strongest at the first realm of godly Cain. All 5 of his cultivation branches have reached the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm. With the guidance of inheritance techniques such as the 8 Tribulations life form and extermination of 72 blades, he clearly understands the path forward toward becoming a godly Cain, which requires step-by-step accumulation rather than sudden breakthrough. He realizes that cultivating powerful secret techniques or even creating his own techniques is essential for deepening his foundation. As seen in experts like Lord Yuan Shu and Great Saint Bai Yun, Luo Feng himself has already developed moves approaching godly king level, such as the Tri-Unity form, giving him profound insight into life essence and physical evolution. After nearly half a century since the first eruption of Blood Spirit Star, the star once again enters an eruption cycle, its surface boiling with liquid flames as massive energy accumulates. Powerful figures such as Desert Wind City Lord, Lord Yuan Shu, Great Saint Bai Yun, and Yan Su all gather near the star, each preparing to seize opportunities. Some plan to observe and strike opportunistically, while others intend direct confrontation. As the eruption begins, Luo Feng arrives directly at the battlefield, positioning himself against Desert Wind City Lord. Recognizing Luo Feng's arrival, the City Lord immediately becomes hostile, recalling their previous unresolved battle, while Yan Su also expresses intent to cooperate with him to suppress Luo Feng and prevent him from obtaining any blood spirit golden pearls. Luo Feng remains calm, observing their coordination attempts without emotional fluctuation. He acknowledges their discussion about faction neutrality and guest elder status within Flame Wind Ancient Country, agreeing that internal conflict among guest elders is not restricted. As the Blood Spirit Star's eruption intensifies, all transcendent experts prepare to act simultaneously. Desert Wind City Lord launches chains that transform into terrifying black serpents aimed at Luo Feng, while Yan Su supports from another direction. However, Luo Feng responds by unleashing his domain ability. With a single thought, 30 billion black rivers merge into his realm domain, forming a massive dark world that instantly expands outward. This dark world is vast, dense, and fully sealed, blocking internal and external perception, even partially cutting off causality. Lord Yuan Shu, Great Saint Bai Yun, and Yan Su are all trapped inside, unable to sense the outside void. Shock spreads among them as they realize they are enclosed within a complete independent world rather than a simple domain. The pressure of Luo Feng's physical presence begins to distort surrounding laws, forcing even supreme rules to retreat. All transcendent beings present feel an overwhelming fear as they realize the gap between themselves and Luo Feng is far greater than expected. The vast dark world, stretching across billions of kilometers, was not a chaotic void but a structured domain governed by operating laws. And at its absolute core stood Luo Feng, who had become the axis through which those laws revolved. His presence alone distorted the fabric of the world, as if the entire realm existed to serve his will. Yan Su, witnessing this, was violently shaken. He recognized the state Luo Feng had reached, the cosmic body realm, where the physical body is no longer merely flesh but evolves into something equivalent to a complete universe. In this state, the body itself becomes a system of laws, capable of suppressing even supreme rules. Yan Su understood that even among godly kings, very few could reach such a level. He bitterly regretted the consequences of provoking Luo Feng, realizing that the two-realm palace had placed him in a fatal situation. What shocked him further was how quickly Luo Feng had transformed, within less than half a cycle of time. His strength had surged beyond comprehension. Bai Yun, the great saint who had merged her existence with heaven and earth, also felt the same suffocating pressure. She could clearly perceive that Luo Feng's dark world was not a constructed technique alone, but an extension of his own being, an entire universe rotating around his will. Even the rules of heaven and earth were being suppressed by his presence. Bai Yun, Yan Su, the Lord of Desert Wind City, and the Lord of Yuan Shu Mansion all felt the weight of absolute danger pressing upon them simultaneously. Standing calmly at the center, Luo Feng addressed them as, "My lords." His gaze sweeping across the battlefield, he declared that all blood spirit golden pearls would belong to him, and asked if anyone objected. Yan Su responded coldly and with suppressed anger, pointing out that there were 4 transcendence-level experts present. Yet Luo Feng intended to monopolize everything alone. He immediately understood that he could not face Luo Feng alone and thus needed alliances to survive. However, even that alliance was unstable, given Luo Feng's overwhelming presence. A green-clothed woman's figure appeared in the void, Bai Yun. Her aura was sharp and destructive, as though it could tear apart heaven and earth. She questioned Luo Feng's intent, acknowledging his strength but rejecting his claim of total ownership. The Lord of Desert Wind City also stepped forward, releasing a furious breath that distorted the air. He refused to believe that a single transcendence of primal chaos realm could suppress 4 of them simultaneously, and demanded to test Luo Feng's true power. In contrast, the Lord of Yuan Shu Mansion chose a different path. From afar, he calmly stated that he had no intention of fighting for the blood spirit golden pearls and only requested to be sent out. He understood clearly that participation in such a battle carried unacceptable risk. His dark mansion required enormous resources to rebuild if destroyed, and death would set him back severely. In his perspective, the pearls were not worth his life. Yan Su mocked him as cowardly, arguing that with 4 of them together, they should not fear Luo Feng. However, Yuan Shu coldly replied that Yan Su's judgment was distorted by his multiple avatars. He could afford losses, while Yuan Shu could not. The Desert Wind City Lord dismissed Yuan Shu's presence as irrelevant, agreeing that he was of no use in battle. Bai Yun silently analyzed the situation and understood Yuan Shu's caution. Among the 4, only Yuan Shu lacked sufficient means of survival compared to the others, making his withdrawal reasonable. Luo Feng accepted Yuan Shu's request without hostility. Since there was no conflict between them, he directly used the Dark World's power to envelop Yuan Shu and send him toward the edge of the domain. Yuan Shu was carried to the boundary membrane of the Dark World and then expelled outside. Once outside, Yuan Shu gazed at the enormous Dark World. He reflected that Bai Yun and the Desert Wind City Lord were both top-tier transcendence experts, while Yan Su possessed extreme survivability. However, even so, none of them could confidently survive a direct confrontation with Luo Feng. He acknowledged that his safest path forward was still advancement to godly king, where mastering a Dao branch would transform his dark mansion fundamentally. Yet breaking through remained extremely difficult. For now, he chose to observe the battle from a distance. Inside the dark world, the confrontation escalated. Bai Yun, the Desert Wind City Lord, and Yan Su each occupied different positions while observing Luo Feng, who had not yet revealed his full strength. Luo Feng smiled and declared that since they insisted on competing for the blood spirit golden pearls, the only solution was combat. Instantly, his power erupted. From his body, a massive black river surged outward, expanding like an endless tide that covered the heavens and earth. Simultaneously, from the membrane of the dark world itself, additional black rivers emerged, merging with the first. The entire domain began contracting inward as Luo Feng refined and condensed its power. Bai Yun observed this transformation and asked calmly what this technique was called. Luo Feng replied, "Black River World." Bai Yun studied the surging currents and acknowledged its terrifying nature. However, in the next instant, she was submerged by the Black River. Her visible form was only an avatar formed from condensed power, while her true body remained merged with heaven and earth. She immediately unleashed her heaven-cutting sword technique, a primordial secret method passed down from Emperor Qing, and wielded the godly king weapon heaven-cutting sword. Each strike of her blade tore open segments of the Black River, briefly splitting its flow. However, the river immediately reformed, endlessly regenerating like a living system. She repeatedly executed devastating slashes, each powerful enough to tear space apart. Yet the Black River continued to surge without reduction. After 13 consecutive strikes, consuming nearly 30% of her divine power, Bai Yun realized with shock that Luo Feng's domain remained essentially unchanged. She concluded that in pure domain confrontation, Luo Feng stood at the absolute peak among transcendents of primal chaos realm experts. Meanwhile, the Desert Wind City Lord charged forward with twin spears, attempting to force a path toward Luo Feng's true body. However, he became trapped within the Black River currents, as though sinking into an endless swamp. Each impact of the river pushed him further back, preventing him from advancing or even retreating freely. Yan Su, surrounded by the Black River, had all his ordinary avatars destroyed instantly. Only one heavily refined avatar remained, barely surviving by dispersing most of the impact. Even so, he was forced into constant evasion, repeatedly retreating under the river's pressure. Luo Feng observed the battlefield calmly. He noted Bai Yun's strength was exceptional, capable of cutting through portions of the Black River repeatedly. But her divine body was not durable, and her power reserves were rapidly draining. In contrast, the Desert Wind City Lord had an extremely strong physical body, but lacked sufficient offensive ability, making him unable to threaten Luo Feng directly. Yan Su, while possessing a unique clone technique, was overall weaker than both. At this point, Luo Feng escalated his attack. Black River currents transformed into streams of blade light, 300.000 simultaneous strands forming the technique, Blade River Slash. These blade lights carried overwhelming destructive force, tearing apart spatial layers as they targeted Yan Su directly. Even the membrane of the braided cage world began cracking under the pressure, revealing terrifying instability beyond. Yan Su, witnessing dozens of fractures forming in the world membrane, felt deep fear. Such fractures indicated that the structural integrity of the sealed world was collapsing. Under this level of power, unless one reached near complete intangibility and merged with the world itself, escape was nearly impossible. He bitterly cursed the two-realm palace, realizing they had placed him in an inescapable disaster. The 300.000 blade lights engulfed him completely, even though he reduced the damage through intangibility by most of its force. His body was still completely annihilated. Bai Yun, observing this, reached a definitive conclusion. Within the land of origin, Luo Feng stood at the absolute forefront of transcendence of primal chaos realm. His combination of domain suppression, physical strength, and destructive capability created an almost flawless combat system. Even supreme laws appeared to retreat before his presence. Realizing that continued fighting was meaningless, Bai Yun merged with her heaven-cutting sword and executed a desperate strike. This single concentrated sword light pierced through the membrane of the dark world, forcibly opening an exit. She escaped immediately. Luo Feng observed this without surprise. He understood that his dark world membrane, while powerful, could not perfectly trap top-tier experts who concentrated all their power into a single point of escape. Even techniques like Yuan Shu's dark mansion prison could only temporarily restrain such opponents. Yan Su, however, lacked the same level of survivability and could not break through the domain. He was completely suppressed by the Black River. The Desert Wind City Lord remained trapped as well, his immense physical body allowing him to endure the river's crushing force, but preventing him from approaching Luo Feng or escaping the domain boundary. As the Blood Spirit Star erupted, liquid flame surged outward, revealing 3 Blood Spirit golden pearls. These were immediately swept into the Black River currents. The Desert Wind City Lord, still struggling, roared that although Luo Feng was stronger than him, he still could not truly harm his body due to its primordial bloodline defense. Even so, he admitted internally that Luo Feng's domain power was overwhelming, and even Bai Yun had been forced to flee. Despite this, he believed he could still preserve his life within the battlefield, though he remained fully suppressed and unable to change the outcome.